A woman doesn't cheat overnight. She cheats in slow motion, with silences that used to be hugs, with changes that seem like little things, but are really signs. And you, being a loyal man, chalk it up to stress, routine, a phase. No, it's not a phase. It's the beginning of your emotional replacement. Female infidelity doesn't always have a body. Sometimes it's just desire, messages, smiles with another name in her head. But it leaves traces, and if you don't learn to read them, you'll always be the last to know. Today I'm going to show you the 9 real signs, the ones I've heard from the mouths of hundreds of women right before they cross the line. And let me warn you now, the last sign doesn't just reveal whether she's already betrayed you, it shows whether you, as a man, can still stop it, or if you've already lost the respect that held her. I'm Celia, psychologist, woman, and witness to the things men don't see until it's too late. Stay with me until the end, because after this video, you won't look at your woman the same way again. You'll see her clearly, and that changes everything. Have you ever felt like everything seems the same, but something just doesn't fit? Like she still says, "I love you," still shares the table, the bed, the kids, but there's a different vibe, an almost imperceptible shift that makes you suspicious without knowing why. That's the beginning, not the physical betrayal, the subtle change in her daily routine. And that's the first point in this video. It's not that she comes home late once, it's that she starts having meetings she doesn't mention, walks she doesn't share, new fatigue, different excuses, and you, with the loyalty of a man still in love, choose to trust her. But trust isn't the same as paying attention. And if you're not paying attention, she can redesign her entire life while you keep believing everything's under control. But it's not. A woman who's starting to give herself emotionally to someone else doesn't say it in words. She says it through changes. She no longer answers at the same time. She no longer complains about the same things. She no longer looks for what she used to find in you. And if you ignore those changes, you become a passive spectator of your own betrayal. One time, a man in a session told me, "Celia, I thought I was just being paranoid," until I realized she had changed her commute without telling me. She started showering at odd hours. She stopped calling me during the day. And when I noticed, it was too late. There was already another man listening to her where she used to only talk to me. That story isn't the exception. It's a pattern. And if you don't learn to spot the pattern, she'll rebuild her desire far away from you while you keep paying the bills, listening to her complaints, and sleeping next to your emotional enemy. You don't need to check her phone. You need to check her routine, because a woman can hide her body, but she can't fake where her energy is going. When she starts moving differently, it's because she's already feeling differently. And if you don't catch it in time, you'll be the last to realize she's no longer living with you. She's just sleeping under your roof, but her desire is long gone. And in a woman's world, when desire leaves, everything else is just window dressing, a habit, a lie dressed up as normal. If you've already realized that the change in her routine isn't a coincidence, then you've taken the first step. Because a woman doesn't need to lie with words when she can lie with gestures. And her gestures, if you know how to read them, tell you everything. But there's something even more obvious, more alarming, and more painful. We've reached the second key point in this video, her renewed interest in her appearance, without you. When a woman suddenly starts taking care of herself, putting on makeup, dressing with more detail, going to the gym, buying lingerie, but doesn't share any of it with you, it's not about self-esteem. It's because she wants to be desired, because someone is watching her, or she hopes someone will. A woman's body doesn't transform by chance. It transforms through desire. And if that desire isn't directed at you, then you've been replaced. Not as a partner, but as a source of attraction, as her masculine reference point, as the presence that used to ignite her. Deep female psychology, the kind they don't teach in magazines or self-help courses, reveals a brutal truth. When a woman no longer desires her man, she starts seducing the world as an escape. But that escape has direction. It has an emotional target. And when you're no longer that target, her physical transformation isn't growth. It's a warning. It's the prelude to betrayal. Because desire needs a body to express itself, but it also needs another body to justify itself. And if you're not that other body, then her new self-care is an alarm disguised as self-improvement. This is where masculine stoicism must kick in, not to accuse, not to control, but to observe clearly. The wise man doesn't react, he discerns. And if you don't discern that this physical change without connection to you is a sign of emotional displacement, you'll end up being the man who claps while he's being replaced, the one who compliments her new figure, not realizing it's no longer for him, the one who pays for the gym membership, not knowing he's funding her attraction to someone else. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying a woman can't take care of herself for her own sake. What I'm telling you, with the blunt honesty no one else dares to offer, is that when this sudden transformation happens and you're not part of the equation, you're not looking at self-love, you're witnessing emotional withdrawal. And if you don't respond, if you don't confront it with masculine dignity, you'll watch her transform right in front of you for someone else. And that, my dear, is one of the most silent humiliations a man can experience, to crave the body that still sleeps beside you, but is already being prepared for another. After noticing the change in her routine and watching her rebuild herself physically without including you, what comes next isn't a direct conversation. What comes next is something far more destructive, precisely because it doesn't look destructive. We've reached the third point in this video, and this is where things begin to shift silently, but lethally. Irritation without reason. When a woman starts forming an emotional bond with someone else, she doesn't always pull away immediately. In fact, many times she stays, playing the roles, attending the commitments, saying the same phrases she's learned to repeat. But her energy is no longer neutral. It's hostile. She can't stand your jokes anymore. She has no patience for your quirks. What once made her laugh now feels awkward. What she used to admire, she now finds insufficient. Not because you've changed, but because her desire has shifted, and everything that comes from you now feels uncomfortable, because it reminds her she's still living a life that no longer excites her. In real psychology, this is called guilt projection. Deep down, she knows she's starting to desire someone else, but since she can't admit it without shattering her own image, she needs you to be the cause of her discomfort, and she does it through little outbursts, subtle criticism, growing impatience. You're not saying the right things, you're not making her feel seen, you're not enough. But she doesn't say it as a legitimate complaint. She says it like slow poison, slowly eroding your self-esteem, because if she can convince you that you're the problem, then she's free to act, with the perfect emotional alibi. This is where you need to apply the strategy that saves you. Firm silence, not reactive, not passive, firm. When you see that she's irritated over nothing, that she's cold, looking to pick a fight, don't explain yourself, don't defend yourself, look at her, breathe, stay silent. Because the man who reacts to every provocation gives up his power, but the man who watches takes control, not over her, over himself. And when you master yourself, you see the game without playing it. You realize her irritation isn't a problem you have to fix. It's a signal you need to interpret. Think of this as an emotional battlefield. The one who raises his voice first loses. The one who needs to justify every move is already under control. But the one who can see without reacting, the one who can endure discomfort without losing his center, that's the man a woman can't manipulate, because he's not driven by the need for her approval. And that man is you, if you dare to be him. Before we continue, hit subscribe and like this video if it's showing you what no one else had the courage to say. Let me know in the comments which country you're watching from, and type one sentence: "My respect is not negotiable," because the signs ahead are even more dangerous. And the last one will show you whether you still hold power in that relationship or if you're only there, because she hasn't found something better yet. If after all the constant irritation you still insist on getting closer, if you still believe that a kind gesture or understanding her is enough to bring things back to how they were, you're stepping into the most destructive trap of all. Because while you're still trying to build emotional connection, she's already begun justifying physical distance. We've reached the fourth point in this video, justified physical coldness. She doesn't touch you the same anymore. She doesn't seek you out at night. She doesn't give herself to you. But when you try to get close, when you caress her back or invite an intimate moment, she doesn't reject you harshly. She explains it, rationalizes it, wraps it in a phrase that sounds wise, mature, even spiritual. Not everything has to be physical. And you, being the good man who doesn't want to pressure her, back off. You give her space. You assume it's just a phase. That desire will return. But it doesn't. Because it didn't leave because of stress. It left because it's already being directed at someone else. And you've become the man who accepts the distance, while someone else receives the energy you thought was yours. This is the most common mistake, and the most destructive, believing that the loss of desire is natural, just part of long-term relationships, that real love doesn't need sex. Lie. Love without desire is friendship, companionship, habit. But it's not erotic connection. It's not a real couple. And if you accept living without desire, without touch, without fire, thinking that's maturity, you're emotionally castrating yourself. You're validating a dynamic where you only exist as support, as provider, as a functional shadow, while her body, mind, or fantasies are already connecting with someone else. The male mind has been trained not to demand, to understand, to wait. But in the realm of desire, passive waiting is defeat, because female desire needs presence, strength, energy. And if all you offer is patience, if you accept a woman denying you without question, you're giving up your place as a man. You're accepting a sweet lie instead of facing a painful truth. She no longer desires you. And if she doesn't desire you, everything else is a performance. The most perverse thing about that phrase, not everything has to be physical, is that it makes you doubt yourself. It makes you feel like you're asking too much, like you're shallow, like you don't understand real love. But what you don't realize is she didn't say that when you were the one who lit her up. That excuse only shows up when the desire is gone, when she needs to justify her rejection without looking like the bad one. And if you don't see it, if you don't confront it, you'll end up grateful for the crumbs of affection a woman hands out, while she gives her fantasies, or her body, to someone who still awakens what you no longer do. There's no room for softness here. If she stops touching you, stops seeking you out, starts justifying her coldness, you don't need to shout, demand, or argue. You only need one thing: clarity. And with that clarity, act. Because a man who tolerates living next to a woman who treats him like a brother has already lost. Not the relationship. He's lost his place, his energy, his essence. And if you don't stop now, if you don't stand your ground, you'll keep being the one sleeping next to a body that no longer wants you, while someone else gets the fantasies that used to be yours. When desire is gone and physical distance is already in place, the next step isn't reconciliation. It's not reconnecting. It's avoidance. Because a woman who no longer feels connected to you, who no longer vibrates in your presence, doesn't seek conflict. She seeks to disappear without guilt, and she does it with a strategy that seems mature but is deeply manipulative. This is the fifth point in the video: evasive conversations. You ask her what's wrong. You ask if everything's okay. You ask, with that mix of tenderness and helplessness, if something has changed. And she doesn't say yes. But she doesn't say no either. She says, "I don't know. I'm confused. Let me think. I don't want to talk about it right now." And you, because you don't want to push, because you still believe there's something to save, you wait. You give her time. You give her space. But that space isn't neutral. That space is a free zone where she can keep disconnecting without having to explain, without admitting she's desiring someone else, without having to break the bond, while she's already silently betraying it. This is where one of the most dangerous mistakes of the loving man takes root, believing that evasiveness means genuine doubt, that her silence is reflection. No, in many cases, it's not. It's unconscious strategy. Because if she can get you to keep waiting without answers, she keeps the emotional power. She stays in control of the narrative. she can keep fading without taking responsibility. And you, without realizing it, become addicted to that silence, to that expectation, to the illusion that one day, finally, she'll talk. But that day doesn't come, because she doesn't want to talk. She wants to leave without looking like the one who ended it. And if you stay stuck in that dynamic, frustration will eat you alive. You'll go from being a grounded, clear, present man to a nervous figure surviving on emotional crumbs from a woman who no longer chooses you. You'll become the one analyzing every gesture, every word, every silence, as if they were divine signs. But they're not signs. They're excuses. They're ways to keep you close, without ever coming back to you fully. The only way to reverse this isn't by insisting. It's not by begging. It's not by waiting for the right moment to talk. It's doing what a high-value man would do, draw a line. And that line isn't drawn with yelling. It's drawn with presence, with a steady gaze that says, I don't need an answer, I need clarity, and if you can't give it, I'll take it myself. Because clarity isn't negotiated, it's exercised. The mindset you need is that of a man who isn't afraid to lose someone who's already losing him. A man who doesn't need to be chosen by someone who no longer desires him. A man who can say, I'm not here to fill your emotional void. I'm here to build a real bond. And if you can't speak, I won't keep waiting. That mindset doesn't just break the dependency, it restores your dignity. Because if you keep accepting evasiveness, you'll end up a man watching life slip through his fingers, waiting for a conversation that will never come. And when she finally does talk, it'll be too late. It won't be to explain anything. It'll be to tell you she's leaving, or worse, that she left a long time ago. You just didn't want to see it. If after all the evasiveness you're still waiting, if you still believe a woman's silence means reflection and not disconnection, then you're about to fall into the most humiliating trap of all. Because when she can no longer dodge, when the distance is too obvious to deny, she doesn't walk away with honesty. She comes closer, with guilt. And that guilt isn't there to take responsibility. It's there to throw at you. This is the 6th point in the video. The indirect guilt overload. She doesn't say it as a reproach. She says it as a confession wrapped in pain. You've changed too, as if her lost desire were your fault. As if the fact that she no longer touches you, no longer looks at you the same, were somehow because of you. And she says it with that calm, soft, almost spiritual tone, not to argue, but to justify. To justify what she already feels, what she's already imagining, what she's probably already done. Because if she can get you to believe you failed, then she can emotionally excuse herself for crossing the line with someone else, without staining her image. Picture this, you're sitting across from her, you know something's wrong. You look into her eyes and ask what's going on, and she, with that blend of sadness and distance, tells you it's not all your fault, but that you've changed too, that you don't make her feel the same anymore, that you're colder, that you no longer give her what she needs. And if you're not strong, you crumble. You believe it. You apologize for things you didn't do. You punish yourself for holding your ground. And while you carry that guilt, she walks freely toward where her desire already lives. This psychological move is one of the most destructive because it turns the victim into the culprit, because you, who are just trying to hold things together, end up feeling like you're the one who tore it all down. And the worst part is, many men stay in that space, trying to fix what they never broke, trying to reignite a flame that didn't die from lack of effort, but from someone else's lack of courage. Because instead of saying she no longer wants you, she'd rather build a narrative where you pushed her to look elsewhere for what she stopped feeling inside. And if you don't see it, if you don't wake up, you'll stay trapped in that emotional game for years. You'll keep trying, surprising her, trying to be who you used to be, without realizing she's not seeking reconciliation. She's seeking emotional redemption. She wants you to carry the cross for her decision, to bear the blame for her betrayal. And if you carry it, if you accept that guilt without questioning it, then you haven't just lost her desire. You've lost your truth. The only real path is clarity, not arguing, not begging, not proving you can still change. Just saying, with the quiet strength of a man who knows himself. Yes, I've changed, because I no longer tolerate what I once did, because I've grown, because now I see what I used to excuse. And when you do that, something breaks. Not in you, in her. Because for the first time, she can't blame you without seeing herself. For the first time, the story doesn't work. And that's the difference between the man who breaks and the man who wakes up. One carries guilt that isn't his. The other returns it in silence with a single look that says, "You're not going to rewrite my story," because you know you didn't change to push her away. You changed because you refused to be the man who gets thanked while being secretly replaced. After she throws guilt at you with phrases like, "You've changed too," after draining you emotionally without taking responsibility, there's only one thing left for her to protect, the little that remains of her image, and she does it without yelling, without fighting, without confrontation. She does it from the quietest place, but the most brutal. We've reached the 7th and final point of this video, the secret digital connection. It's not just her phone, it's how she uses it, how she guards it, how she hides it, how the password suddenly changes, how she places it face down, how she carries it with her even to the bathroom, how she replies quickly to certain messages, and how she deletes the chat history. That's not caution, that's a hidden bond, that's another relationship, another man, maybe not yet physical, but already emotionally present. Because today, a lover doesn't need a room, just a chat, a message, a virtual gaze. And if you don't see it, if you think you're overreacting, you're already losing, without even knowing it. The phone doesn't lie, and neither does the energy with which she protects it. And this isn't about controlling her or invading her privacy. It's about observing, seeing if there's something you're no longer part of, if there are gestures that used to be natural and are now defensive, if there are laughs that no longer happen with you, but suddenly appear when she's looking at her screen, because deep down, you know it. You just don't want to admit it. Because saying it out loud means accepting that someone else already occupies the space you thought was yours. This is the moment when many men shut down, give up, accept disguised betrayal, choose not to see, not to ask, not to act, because facing the truth hurts more than living in the lie. But the price of that cowardice is high, because while you pretend everything's fine, while you keep telling yourself, he's just a friend, she's already emotionally gone. And you, without realizing it, are sleeping next to a woman who's no longer with you, just with your shadow. There are no excuses, no justifications. You've now heard the 7 signs. You now know how a woman who cheats behaves. And if any of these signs repeat in your story, you can't lie to yourself anymore. Now the change is up to you, your dignity, your strength, your ability to say, "This ends here." Because staying in a relationship where you're no longer chosen isn't love, it's cowardice. And you weren't born to be the man who settles. You were born to be the man who commands respect, who doesn't compete with shadows, who sees the truth and acts without fear, without guilt, without permission. If you've already seen the signs in her body, in her voice, in her phone, and you're still there, then it's not that you can't leave. It's that you don't believe you can. Because the problem isn't just her. The problem is the image you've built of yourself. You've been emotionally domesticated. You were made to believe that you have to stay, that a loyal man endures, that if you love her, you don't walk away. But that narrative is what's keeping you trapped in a relationship where you're no longer loved, just tolerated. And this brings us to the 8th point of this video, the mindset that fuels your self-deception. You already know what's going on. You felt it in your body. You saw it in her behavior. You sensed it weeks ago, maybe months, but you did nothing. Why? Because your mind is programmed to protect stability, even if that stability is humiliating. Because you don't want to start over. Because you're afraid to be alone. Because you still believe you can win her back. But let me tell you something. With all the bluntness no one else will give you. You don't get back what's already chosen to leave. And even less, you don't win back a woman who's already seen you weak, who's seen that you can tolerate disdain, indifference, betrayal, and still stay. The only way to break this dynamic is not with more patience, not with more understanding. It's with a decision, clear, cold, masculine. Today, not tomorrow, today. Because if you don't act today, tomorrow, you'll be emptier, more exhausted, more subdued. What can you do? The simplest and hardest thing: stop reacting, stop explaining yourself, stop trying to win her back. Don't ask her if she still loves you, don't beg her to talk, don't wait for her to touch you again. Just act like the man who already knows his worth. Withdraw your emotional presence, cut off the affection supply, not with resentment, with dignity. Let her see you're no longer there to support her double emotional life. And that, believe me, will do more than 1,000 words, because the woman who cheats, who grows cold, who manipulates sweetly, doesn't expect you to leave. She expects you to stay, to keep trying, to keep giving in, to keep believing it's just a phase. And when you break that cycle, when you stand up and say no more, you don't just reclaim your place, you reclaim your essence. Because a man who respects himself doesn't need explanations. The signs are enough. And you, if you've made it this far, have seen them all. So take a good look at yourself, not with guilt, with clarity. And ask yourself if you're going to keep being the man who needs to be chosen, or the man who chooses himself, even if it means letting go of a woman who left a long time ago. The answer to that question defines everything that comes next: your desire, your energy, your strength, your direction. Because in the end, respect isn't asked for, it's asserted, with one decision. And that, brother, is yours alone. The hardest part isn't seeing the signs. The hardest part is what comes next. Because once you recognize them, once you know she's changed, that she's pulling away, that she guards her phone like she's hiding her soul, there's no going back. What follows is action, and that's where most men freeze, not for lack of evidence, not for lack of clarity, but because of the most destructive thing a man can experience: his own excuses. That's why we've reached the 9th point of this video, the mental blocks you use to keep yourself from moving forward. My kids need stability. I have nowhere to go. She hasn't done anything that bad. Every couple has rough patches. Maybe I'm overreacting. Sound familiar? These are the phrases you repeat to avoid taking action, because if you move, everything ends. And yes, it hurts. But staying also hurts. Only that pain is slower, more cowardly, more humiliating. It's the pain of a man who betrays himself every day, who knows he's next to a woman who no longer respects him, but chooses to fake normalcy instead of losing the false peace that's slowly killing him inside. None of those excuses hold up. You're not staying for your kids. You're staying out of fear, because you know that if she replaces you, you'll be left alone with yourself. And that version of you, right now, you don't like, because he's shut down, because he let himself be used, because it's been a long time since he made a decision that restored his strength. And that's the real reason you're stuck, because you don't know who you are outside of that relationship, because your identity was built around pleasing, holding on, enduring, and now that it's time to act, you've run out of script. But the way out isn't in more promises or motivational quotes. The way out is burning those excuses one by one. I have nowhere to go is a lie. What you don't have is direction. She hasn't done anything that bad is a lie. The real issue is that you no longer matter. Maybe I'm overreacting is a lie. Your body felt the betrayal long before your mind admitted it. And once you tear down all those justifications, only one truth remains. You're not moving because you don't believe you can. But that's a lie too. Because a man who's seen the truth can't keep living asleep. So I'll make it clear for you today. The one who doesn't act isn't unable. He's choosing not to, and that choice is what's keeping you weak. Not her betrayal, not her coldness, not her games. You, your lack of action, your refusal to end what's destroying you. Because you'd rather have company than dignity. You're no longer confused. You're no longer blind. You're no longer naive. Now you're responsible, and being responsible hurts. But it also sets you free, because when you accept that no one is coming to save you, you stop being a victim, and you finally become the man who doesn't need to prove anything, just live in his truth, even if that means letting go of everything that once held you together, Because freedom doesn't come with words, it comes with a decision. Firm, non-negotiable, masculine, and that one is yours to make. If you've made it this far, you're not just any man. You're one of the few who dared to face what most prefer to ignore. And that already puts you on a different level, not of superiority, but of awareness. Because now you know, you can't pretend anymore. You can't keep saying everything's fine while your desire fades, while her body grows cold, while your soul withers in a relationship where you stopped being chosen long ago. You have two paths. Keep justifying her distance, or start reclaiming your respect. And that decision, no matter how painful, is yours alone. Comment right now and tell me which country you're watching from, and write one sentence. I live with wisdom. Because that's what starts to make the difference. Stopping the silence, refusing the crumbs, no longer waiting for understanding where there's no more desire. I'm Celia, and this is your House of Wisdom. This channel doesn't exist to comfort broken men. It exists to awaken the ones who've fallen asleep. Men who were once strong, clear, desired, and who today are paying the price for having forgotten their power. Subscribe now and become part of a community that doesn't play the victim, doesn't kneel, doesn't apologize for demanding respect. Share this video with that friend who keeps making excuses for a woman who's already shut him down. Because maybe this is the only thing that will shake him before he completely sinks. And don't leave just yet. Watch the two videos now appearing on your screen. Pick the one that makes you uncomfortable. Because right there, in what's hardest to face, is what you need to hear the most. I'll see you there. The conversation is just beginning.